podcast. We are broadcasting live this week from the road. We're in beautiful Lake Tahoe today and getting some interviews in on the road as well. So we've got a great guest for you guys today. Kevin DiLorenzo is a partner and CEO of Rise and Shine, an award-winning independent creative brand strategy and advertising agency based in Minneapolis. With over 30 years of experience in advertising and communications, he has guided creative and brand strategies for major national and regional brands, including Target, Best Buy, BMW, McDonald's, Capital One, Andersen Windows, and UnitedHealth Group, just to name a few. Kevin, thanks so much for coming on, spending some time with us.
Hey, Dylan, thanks, and greetings from Minneapolis.
Let's go. Let's go. The one market I've never been to, I think, is Minneapolis.
We got to get you here. It's a good one.
Well, next time we'll do it in person. But I know I wrapped off a little bit on kind of, current role and responsibilities and what you've been up to, but maybe you can contextualize things for us a little bit. So where'd you grow up? What'd you study? And how'd you get into the advertising business?
All right, I won't go too long on this, but grew up in Venezuela, South America.
Wow, let's go. That's awesome.
But was born in Minnesota and returned here for my career. So did a short stint on the journalism side and broadcast journalism, was a TV news anchor and reporter, then jumped into the agency business through PR, and then worked at great shops. Fallon, Carmichael, Lynch, was CEO at Olson, and then actually found my way and started this business at Rise and Shine.
Amazing. I have to stop on the Venezuela thing just for a moment, if you don't mind. I know we don't need to make this a politics podcast, but yeah, I'm curious about that. What was your did you have to leave, due to political situations or and what do you think about the current situation? And do you think things are going to change there? Will it open up more? What do you think?
Big question. I won't unpack the whole thing, but
sure.
During my era, they're incredible country. A lot of investment coming in from the rest of the world. A little different situation than we've got today. I can't even pretend to understand exactly where things are right now, but I feel for the people. They're incredible through this change going on with the government and the earthquakes. A lot of tough cards being dealt their way, and hopefully they'll come out of it in a better place.
Very cool. Well, yeah, just an interesting background. So I feel like we had to dwell there for just a moment. I'm sure it informs your worldview a little bit. So
it does.
All right. Kevin, while holding companies continue to roll up agencies into massive homogenized networks, Rise and Shine has thrived as a fiercely independent creative shop. What's the real competitive advantage today of being an independent creative agency when pitching against the holding companies?
Great question. We get it a lot. And I always tell our people when I stand up in front of the agency, it's not that we're independent. It's what do we do with it? And for us, it allows us to be pretty bespoke. When a client opportunity comes our way, we always think about, does it match our ambition? Does it create the opportunities our people want? And then how does our independence allow us to create bespoke solutions? And what I love about that is we can do things. We can move faster. We can rebuild teams. We can create process that allows us to be much more custom for the opportunity. And we think clients feel it differently coming from a shop like ours.
Very cool. The industry has spent the past decade obsessed with lower funnel performance metrics and short-term metrics, often at the expense of long-term brand equity. How do you convince a adverse CMO or CFO that investing in top of funnel brand building is still the most efficient growth engine that a company has?
We're big believers in top of the funnel. We call it tofu. That's where you got to keep bringing prospective customers and people into that funnel, or else bottom funnel optimization, you run out of targets and opportunities. So we believe in filling that funnel constantly. We do believe, though, that we're seeing more and more opportunity in what we're calling the magic middle. That's where someone may have had a brand exposure, but they're showing signals of looking or discovery. And so we've all been victim of the feed late at night where you see something that you're kind of familiar with, you've seen it before, and you decide now is the moment to strike. And that magic middle, we think, is becoming increasingly valuable, in particular as people's behaviors change and the way they actually go through funnels and social.
Do you think brand loyalty and the funnel, a lot of people are saying it's compressing due to, AI, people spending more time in conversational chatbots and less time in the traditional buyer's journey where they're doing primary research, they're kind of outsourcing it to these LLMs. Do you think the middle is expanding because people are less, tied to the brands that they love? Are they more price and convenience sensitive? What do you think are some of the factors that are creating more opportunities at the middle of the funnel?
Well, you've hit a few of them. I also think as clients, that pendulum keeps swinging on brand versus performance and where should it land. And when I think mid-funnel, you're seeing a little bit of that you can measure, right? There's a little bit of a performance part to it, but a presence in social today is also a big brand opportunity. And so what we're seeing is it feels like the middle's becoming more and more comfortable for brands and investment. They can get some performance metrics out of it and still feel like they're building brand equity in the right way. I call it brand tailing. What you want to do is introduce enough brand, but make sure you're giving people the opportunity, if they're in consideration, to be able to convert more quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned social. On my flight out yesterday, I saw, some marketing guru. I don't know how much the research is based in, what it's based on, but, this guy's pretty credible. He's been around for a minute. And he just showed, how often a brand posts actually does have a pretty direct correlation on exponential returns on impressions and awareness and followers and reach. If your brand's only posting 1 to 3 times a week versus, on the high end, he was looking at 25 plus. And sometimes, we've been led to believe that, volume doesn't really matter, but we've kind of moved to this algorithm driven economy where these platforms really they reward, over indexing, posting 3 times a day is kind of the goal on a lot of these platforms. How do you consult with a brand and help them manage a content strategy that might require 100 pieces of content a month if they want to hit those top of funnel opportunities to kind of maximize, their organic social presence?
Yeah, the algos are definitely, they have minds of their own and they change constantly. We always question, are we serving the algo for the greater good of our people and the audiences that we're trying to connect with, or are we playing a game? And, it's kind of funny because Banksy has this great quote, never has so much been used by so many to say so little. And
that is good.
Gets to that content inflation conversation that's happening right now. There's a truth to that. I mean, at some point, people stop listening. So ensuring that if you're going to post at a super high frequency like that, you have to be memorable. There has to be a distinct point of view. There has to be a reason. Otherwise, it becomes white noise. And so I would far rather work with clients who have an interest in making sure that what they say is heard and understood and seen and remembered, versus they're constantly in someone's feed that at some point you want to hit unsubscribe because they're just taking up your time and energy with nothing real interesting to say.
Yeah, they're just jumping on the latest trend or posting because it's, National Ice Cream Day, even though they're not an ice cream brand. Yeah, no, I love that.
Yep. If there's a free ice cream cone in it for you, then okay, there's a value exchange, but you're right. I mean, it's got to be meaningful and intentional.
I like that. All right. Rise and Shine has built a reputation around high impact, big idea creative that stands out in crowded categories. How has the agency's core creative philosophy evolved over the years to stay ahead of changing media habits without losing the soul of great brand storytelling?
I mean, it's a great question. We were founded, one of our founding partners, Bob Berry. He's a One Club Hall of Famer. When the doors were open here, creativity wasn't a department. It was kind of a mandate. Even if you were in another department, you had to be a creative thinker and problem solver. That era too, creativity was a little different. It was built to kind of go and sit in places. We've been around for 20 years, right? And our new chief creative officer, Matt Burgess, has come in with a different era of creativity. And that's that ideas still need to be able to hold, but they need to be able to travel. And so we look at creativity needing to move seamlessly through ecosystems and show up in a form that's recognizable and repeatable, and actually creates the kind of memory and impression we need to on behalf of the brand. So creativity is still key. We need to make sure that it captures attention, that it stops a scroll, that it has purpose and intent and reinforces a brand position and priority. But it has to be flexible to move, be shared, consumed in so many more ways than it ever used to. So we're always ecosystem minded. An idea has to be built to be able to travel.
Matt is pretty well known. That name sounds super familiar to me. Remind me a little bit of his background, if you wouldn't mind.
So Matt and I worked together early in our careers. When I was CEO at Olson, he was an creative leader. Then he went out west. He went to Wong Duty for about 6
okay.
years.
That's where I know Matt. Yeah. Yep. We played golf one time.
That would make a lot of sense. He is a big golfer.
Yeah, I became friendly with his CFO when he was at Wong Duty, and he brought him out one day to hit the clubs with us. We used to have a standing early morning South Bay Manhattan Beach, golf event for the industry, and he would come out a lot. So
I'll be sure to say hello. Matt is one of those guys that we worked so well together. When the opportunity came for a CCO job, there was one call.
That's awesome.
It was, how do I convince Matt to come from LA back to Minneapolis?
Well, give him my congratulations. Yeah. I'll be sure to reach out.
Will do.
Okay. So a lot of modern campaigns last for a 2-week social trend and then disappear. Rise and Shine focuses on creating enduring brand platforms. What are the key elements of a brand strategy needs to have so it can anchor a company for 5 to 10 years rather than just a quarter?
Right. You're hitting on something that we talk about a lot and that we've actually adopted, and that's this new thinking. It's a shift from campaign mindset to more of this kind of habitual publishing, where you're constantly actually having a drumbeat to reinforce a set of brand expectations and behaviors that people can come to count on you for and expect. And so if you think about the temporary thinking of a campaign with starts and stops versus more of a drumbeat of a conversation that allows you to reinforce your brand, stay relevant in the conversation throughout the year, the key becomes, how are you memorable? Because if you can be memorable at the moment someone actually needs your product or service, because you've been a great kind of faithful communicator throughout the year, you win. You don't need big bursts of campaigns at key moments. You actually need to have them remember you when they need you.
Yeah, you need that enduring awareness, but also people recognize that you can solve the problem that they have at the moment of consideration.
Exactly. And that's a tougher job. Being memorable today requires great discipline and not getting bored with yourself, because as agency people and even clients, it's easy to get bored with your work before the rest of the world does. But just hanging on, being consistent, underscoring some of those important things and not getting bored too quickly is critical.
The best creative work usually requires a brand to take a risk and step outside of its comfort zone. But corporate legal and brand safety teams love to sand off the sharp edges of a campaign. What is your playbook for guiding a cautious client team to embrace bold, unexpected creative?
I guess first is trust. Hopefully you have a relationship where they believe you're doing what you think is the right thing for them and their business. 2 is a tight brief with a real strong insight. We do a process that is designed to kind of make sure that we're putting a lot of ideas on the table to be evaluated, and it's called Creative Puddles. It's something Matt introduced when he joined the agency. And think of puddles as just that. They're not very deep, but they're super clear. You can see the bottom and you can see the idea. And we usually put a range quickly after kicking off a brief. Within about a week, we're showing clients 8 to 10 puddles. And it's literally a swipe right or left kind of presentation on, hey, that's got interesting stuff. We like that. We don't like this. Could this ever be combined with that? And we quickly get a sense of what they like, what they don't like. We learn just as much from what they don't as what they do. But as puddles develop, we kind of co-collaborate and co-creative direct with our clients. If sand starts coming off the edges a little bit, we can kind of catch them when the argument and the debate is a healthy one. Hey, it's early on. Maybe this idea isn't the idea you thought. You're sanding the edges off. It might be losing its power. rather than waiting till you get to the end and there's a ta-da presentation and all of a sudden the client's going, I don't know that I can sell this. I don't know that this is going to make it. So we love the idea of iterating through puddles. Puddles get a little bit deeper, a little bit larger. Pretty soon they're lakes, oceans. You got a big idea, but the collaboration is what allows us to sell brave ideas. I think a big example for Supercuts was we created something called a real dumb coupon. And it was based on an insight. People feel like you need to pay a lot more than $20 to get a good haircut.
My last haircut was at Supercuts, and I had to go to 2 of them to find an open chair.
Well, I tell you what, the reviews are actually 4.5, 5 stars, but there are people that feel like you got to pay $100 for a good haircut. Yep. So we actually created a real dumb coupon. It was like, we'll charge you $50 more, reverse coupon if it makes you feel better about it. And it was a viral social creative unit, and it took off. And it was based on a very brave idea that was fueled by a real smart insight. And it was scary for the clients, but they committed.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I think, and that's one of those things where you're really trying to redirect, not only, make yourself memorable, but redirect a category situation. And yeah, I don't know. I've always really enjoyed Supercuts, but I understand why there's a perception. There's perception issues in luxury goods, right? Like, why do you pay $1,000 for a T-shirt?
Exactly. Because sometimes that's the only answer, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's a mental game we play.
Yeah, it's an experience, but there's a lot of people out there that want convenience and value too. So,
right.
All right. Feeds are currently inundated with cheap AI-generated content and brand noise. We mentioned, sometimes volume for the sake of volume isn't the key. When everyone is pumping out hundreds of low-quality assets every week, how does Rise and Shine approach creative craft and differentiation so a client's work actually interrupts somebody's scroll versus just adding to it?
Yeah, I tell you, this was a huge topic at Cannes this year.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed how many people were talking about AI slop. And then I looked at their feeds after Cannes and it was full of AI slop. And I'd be like, people, right? Weren't we just talking about this? But AI does serve a role. We're embracing AI. I remember this was probably 4 years ago. I was watching VH1 special on pop music. And they were interviewing T-Pain, and he was talking about auto-tune. And he was talking about how shamed he was by the industry for using auto-tune. And he said something really powerful at the time. And that was, I'm an artist. At the end of the day, when someone introduces a new tool for me to play with in the toolbox, as an artist, it's my responsibility to take it out and play with it. And I thought, you know what? That's the attitude for our industry with AI. Now, we're using AI behind the scenes to drive efficiencies. We're using it creatively to help bring ideas and concepts to life, kind of in the early stages of pitching what could be possible. We created an AI tool, which is really more about rapid automation of creative ideas. It's a production tool. We call it Black Rabbit because it replicates creativity really fast. Joke, Black Rabbit replicates fast. But the fact is, we haven't put a lot of AI generated work into the market because we don't think it's ready. We don't think it's there yet, but we're using it a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Get in the way of human creativity and insight and understanding. I always ask myself, could AI write an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm in the way that it makes us cringe based on just knowing humans so well? It can't, right? It takes humans to understand how to create cringe, or even what's beautiful and emotionally powerful. And we're leaning into humanity real hard and using AI as someone to support humans rather than take it over.
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting. Especially young people are really good at spotting AI, and also, they respond to it more negatively for some reason. Like I have 10 and 12-year-old girls, and we're always sharing things on Instagram as a family around, and like they bust me and my wife constantly for sharing something where we got fooled and it was AI generated. And then on top of that, they kind of like they kind of, look at AI. They say it as a pejorative, but
Interesting.
and then the other interesting thing is, you have to AI like marks itself with a watermark now, right? So if you post it on social media, it gets marked. And I've heard from the platforms that AI marked advertising completely flops compared to real advertising with real people, especially as it pertains to the actors, because for whatever reason, people, even if they like the content, there's this internal, just I guess, negative reaction. Maybe it's the same reaction that's causing kids to boo technology executives at commencement speeches. I don't know what it is, but a lot of folks that I've talked to who are AI content bulls, I guess we'll call them, their prognosis is when 99% of the content is AI, no one will care. So as the volume increases and increases, then people will become used to it, kind of like banner blindness, I suppose. But then
Maybe.
I wonder, but then maybe do people seek out craft content that's made, purely, I suppose, as, a refuse from, or somewhere to go to be able to, experience something real. I don't know. It's
Well,
interesting.
Dylan, your daughters are they've got what, a sixth or seventh or eighth sense
Yeah.
on being able to root it out right away, right? It's a fine-tuned kind of sense they've got. I'd like to believe that this return to analog, vinyl records, all these making real things. AI, the danger in it is that good enough becomes good enough, and good enough isn't good enough if you're in a craft industry where you have to break through and be distinctive. I think that the more things become the same because of AI, the greater the opportunity is for people who aren't using it.
Very cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about legacy agency pricing models. So a lot of agencies have built their business on this idea of billable hours, but clients increasingly want speed, efficiency, and value-based pricing. How do you structure agency scopes and client partnerships today so that your team isn't just rewarded for great ideas, rather than just time spent?
Well, as an independent, this is another place where we have great flexibility. I mean, we all know one size doesn't fit all. We have some clients who procurement insists on hours and FTEs and monthly tracking, and so we put it in place. We have other clients who are like, this is the budget I've got. Can you make it happen for that? And it's more value based. And so we're willing to do that. So I guess what we've found is being bespoke and what works best for our clients and our business is the right way to do it, which means there is no one way. There are many ways, and we have the freedom to be able to say this works for this client and they really value that, and this works for this client and we can build a model for that. And so we probably have 4 different financial models based on the kind of client. We're fortunate that most of our clients are AOR driven business. So with
Nice.
agency of record, you have a relationship and you can kind of work budgets a little bit differently with projects. Sometimes those are more value based. This is the fee for the service. We commit to delivering it for that. No surprises. But the client has a strong voice in the model they want, and we make it work.
You've pitched and won major brand accounts throughout your career. What's the single biggest flaw in how enterprise brands run agency RFPs today, and how should they actually evaluate a creative partner outside of the traditional pitch system?
There are probably 2 things I'd put on the flaws of an RFP process. And it's not all of them, but the majority of them. One is, I think clients and sometimes people running the process are trying to force an apples to apples comparison and process. Meaning we're going to level everyone so that they kind of show the same ways. So a report card becomes a really easy thing to fill out because every agency has been put in a box to very specifically respond this way. And I would say the danger in that is you might lose the distinctive qualities of an agency that are looking to break process and show you why they're different and how they're different. And so you're immediately eliminating what could be the most important part of the pitch. And that's who's different than the others and what are those differences and do we value them? I would say the second thing is that a lot of times clients feel pressure to have the answer in the final presentation and to buy a pitch that served that day. And they stop short of saying, who's the better long-term partner that can get us there? And so we're seeing a trend now more towards, we want to see how you think and how you might solve something versus bring us a campaign that we can go produce immediately. But there are still a lot of pitches where they buy an idea and they don't think about, is this an agency that we can have a long-term partnership with? So I would encourage agencies that are in pitches and clients who are running them and consultants, let agencies be themselves in a process so you can see what they're made of. And two is, don't fall for buying an idea on the table. Find the right partner that'll get you there long term and have a deep well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think that's a fair way of running an agency RFP process? Because I know there has always been a lot of, I guess I don't see it as much these days, but when I first started in the industry, we used to get these, what we called like, pardon the French, but we said we wouldn't cuss, but I'll say it. We called them mind fucking RFPs.
Oh yeah, they're out there.
Where basically, and this was more on the media agency side, but they would send out kind of a BCC email, disguised as as an investment opportunity because media agencies usually can get the vendor community to respond, and they would be like, oh, we're looking for ideas for this thing, and just send them over with no protection or no consideration, other than, I mean, it did build goodwill with the media agency if you sent over something that was interesting and you put time and effort and kind of rolled up your sleeves, but it did feel a little icky then.
Right.
But even in my 15 years working on either vendor side or specialty agency, I only ever got paid to pitch once in 15 years. And now I hear it's pretty common, at least on the creative agency side. So what is do you think the procurement process should focus, like you said, more on like not trying to go after specific work, but the thinking? Or is it okay as long as they're willing to compensate? Like if they run an RFP process, everybody gets paid $10,000, and at the end of the pitch, the brand owns all the ideas, and they may take some from you and actually give it to the other agency to execute because the chemistry test or some part of their capabilities, or maybe it was cost. What do you think is the fairer way?
We're seeing that trend of more paid opportunities. The good news is every agency has a choice, right? Do I want to participate or not? We were actually one a few years ago where we decided we wouldn't take the money because the money, even though it was compensation, wasn't fairly valued to the ideas. We were like, if you want the ideas, you can hire us or we can negotiate separately. But the minute you take cash in exchange for ideas, they do own them. And so I think that's a big question for agencies, because you can say, hey, that's great, they want to pay us for a pitch. But at the end of the day, you got to feel like that was a value exchange that was worth it. And I don't know if whipping up, tens of thousands of dollars worth of ideas and energy and time and hustle is worth a 10 grand paycheck. A lot of agencies won't take other agency ideas either. So maybe if it's an in-house agency, that might be okay. But I think it's getting complicated. But what I appreciate in value is we look at the client opportunities as hard as they're looking at the agencies they have to choose from. And there are two people involved in making a decision, not just one.
Yeah, I like that mutual vetting. I think if agencies are willing to hold their line, whether it's category expertise, values, pricing structures, culture, I feel like if we were, maybe as an industry, the problem is there's so much competition, but I think there are the right clients for every agency, and that's why so many exist. So if we can kind of hold our ground and have a North Star, I think it maybe, makes it kind of creates this dynamic that the brands have so much control, maybe a little less apparent or less obvious.
Yeah. I mean, New business is one of those things that there are a million opportunities out there. There are a million agencies out there. It's hard to get everyone on the same page with their belief systems on these things. But what I love is being empowered to be able to say, this feels right for us. We feel it's transparent enough. We feel like it's the ambition that we can do well with. And if it's not, we have the power to be able to say it's not for us.
Very cool. All right. We hear endless talk at industry panels about culture jacking and real-time social reactivity. But sitting as the CEO chair at Rise and Shine, leading strategy for creative for major brands, what's the single biggest truth about building a memorable brand that the advertising industry is still ignoring?
Well, I think we tend to get bored pretty quickly. And so I would say it probably comes back to just being consistent. Shiny objects are out there. It's our job to kind of always be at the forefront. But agency teams, client teams tend to get bored with their work faster than the rest of the world does, and therefore constantly thinking that there needs to be reinvention. But I think today there's something about building equity that's lasting in recurring themes, ideas, creating memorable brand assets. You know, there's a reason why logos exist, mnemonic devices exist, color schemes exist, templates exist, and that's to be easily recognizable and remembered when the moment comes. And so I would say consistency and just making sure that you're out there, not with starts and stops, but also in consistent ways, habitually present, so that as culture evolves and moves, you can show up with the kind of expectation and responsibility of the brand you want to be, but make sure you're always relevant and plugged in to the conversation that's happening in the world. So I think I'd come back to consistency and not getting bored too quickly with who you are and what you stand for.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I think consistency is a value that maybe sometimes gets looked at as table stakes, but it's actually harder than you know, it being obvious. I think it does take real discipline. So I think that was a really important point from your thinking. So thank you for that, Kevin.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be boring either. I mean, you can be consistently intriguing and interesting, right? And that's the other part of it, to be memorable. It's got to be something that gets people's attention and that they attribute to you.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me today and giving the audience a little bit of a peek behind the curtain at what you guys are up to at Rise and Shine. If folks want to follow along with your thought leadership and or connect with the agency, where do you want to send people to stay in touch?
I'd send them to riseshandshineandpartners.com or to follow us on LinkedIn. And then we also have a newsletter. If people want to sign up, there's a link on the website. But we try and put a lot of content out there so people see who we are. And we really appreciate dealing the conversation like this. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, sorry we didn't get a Connect at Small agency, but hopefully I can come see you guys in
next time.
Minneapolis for my first Minneapolis trip after all these years in the industry. I can't believe I haven't made it to that town still somehow.
I bet you Matt would get you on a golf course.
Yeah, well, hey, I might have to hit you guys up on that before it gets cold again. So,
all right.
All right, everybody. Well, everyone who's tuning in at home, if this is the first time you're seeing the show, don't forget to give us a follow or subscribe. If you're listening to the show, an honest review on whatever podcast platform you might be listening on is how we find a bigger audience. So don't forget to do that. And if there is a client out there who you think would maybe enjoy the conversation that I had with Kevin today about brand consistency and some of the fundamentals of the advertising industry as we continue to evolve and agency structures and the brave new world of AI creativity, don't forget to share the show. And with that, Kevin, I will wish you a great day. Thanks for coming on, spending a little bit of time with us today.
Likewise. Thanks, Dylan.
See you soon.